The countdown is on to the total solar eclipse here in South Carolina. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with ABC News 4 Chief Meteorologist Dave Williams one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Dave!
Hey Quintin.
It is so good to see you.
Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's my new home now, I guess.
I know. We love having you.
Training out interviews every week, I guess. But now let's talk about the weather. It's been a really late summer for us.
It has been incredibly wet. If we compare it to last year we saw 99 days where we hit 90 degrees or hotter.
Right.
And this year we're on track to be right about average, which is 56 days where we hit 90 degrees or hotter. So it's just not as hot this year. And the main reason is because of all the rain we've seen. Downtown Charleston's looking at a surplus of rain right now of about a foot. So it's been an incredibly soggy, especially June, July, and August.
Right.
So yeah, it's just been wet.
Yes, indeed. But it won't be wet for the solar eclipse, I don't think.
I sure hope not. At this point, I think it's like a 20 to 30% chance of a shower or thunderstorm. So I really think we're going to keep things dry for the eclipse, but it's going to be a typical August day. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid. We'll see those high temperatures up around 90 degrees and about a 30% chance of that afternoon thunderstorm. So I wouldn't be too concerned with it being washed out.
And let me take you to the chart. I borrowed it from Ed over at WPDE. But it basically says this: Charleston, the eclipse begins at 1:17.
Yep.
The totality begins at 2:46.
Yep.
And the totality ends at 2:47, which is obviously, what, 2 minutes or so?
Yeah, it's not going to last long. I think in the Charleston Harbor, it's going to be between 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes. But if you go a little farther to the north, up toward Ondaw,
Right.
we're talking about maybe 2.5 to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Same thing for Monk's Corner. Monk's Corner is going to see much more of this eclipse than we are. I am just now. The eclipse itself is way outside of my scope because it's in outer space, and technically what I focus on is inside the Earth's atmosphere.
Okay.
But I'm so excited about the eclipse that I've really been studying up on it. It's just fascinating to think that the sun, the moon, and the Earth are going to align properly, that I'm going to be in this shadow, and it's going to be projected perfectly on top of me. So even if it is cloudy and rainy here, it's still going to be as dark as night.
Right.
So the street lights are going to pop
Right.
on. It's going to be amazing.
And this hasn't happened in when I watched Frank Reynolds, it was maybe 30-something years ago?
I believe it was 70 or 71 was the last one to come right through the low country. But as far as coming all the way across the country,
Right.
It's been 99 years since this has happened.
What is the biggest difference between then and now in your mind?
Between 99 years ago, honestly, we hadn't understood a solar eclipse that well. For maybe 50 years before that, it's only since the mid-1800s that people started to be able to mathematically tell what an eclipse was going to do and how long it would last and things like that. But now it's just kind of like, oh, we plug it into the equations, we know exactly when they're going to happen. And in fact, the next big eclipse here is not that far away. It's only about 7 years. I believe it's 2024.
Wow.
So, but it's just really cool to see. I remember I was in high school in 1994 in Northeast Ohio, and we had a partial eclipse then, and it was just so cool to go outside and be able to watch it. We made pinhole cameras so we could see it. It was just something really cool to see. But this one's the whole thing. We're going to see the total eclipse. You're going to see the corona around the outside of the moon.
Yes.
So basically, it'll look like flames all around the moon. It's going to be really cool.
Yes. You talk about cameras. Everybody's going to be out there trying to take photos and whatnot.
Yep.
What are the do's and don'ts in your mind?
The do's and don'ts with cameras are make sure you have the right filter. And at this point, if you don't have it, you're probably not going to have it in time for the eclipse. Your cell phone cameras are actually okay to take pictures, but they're not going to turn out very well. So meteorologist Sonia Stevens and I, we were talking about this earlier. we're not going to worry about the pictures. We'll let the professionals take the pictures, and we're just going to watch it and be amazed. But make sure to have those eclipse glasses. Yeah.
And they were supposed to have what, ISO?
It's got a NASA rating on it,
Okay.
so the official glasses will have a rating. Just read the fine print and make sure that they are certified for an eclipse and that you're not going to damage your eyes, because it can cause permanent damage very quickly. Sunglasses aren't good enough. The naked eye is not good enough. You need those eclipse glasses.
And I want to go back to the chart because, again, Charleston, the eclipse ends from 117 and the totality ends at 247. When should you put on the glasses? When should you take them off? And when should you put it back on?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And we've got it right here behind you. This is the actual timeline. So it does start at 116 here in Charleston. That's when you're going to want the eclipse glasses.
Okay.
Anytime you can actually see the big disk of the sun, that's when you want to keep those eclipse glasses on.
Okay.
So if you want to practice this weekend, if we get some sunshine, go out and look up with your eclipse glasses, and that's just fine. That's when you're going to want to have them on. But right here at 2:46, when you don't see any sunshine at all, you can take those glasses off and you can just look up, and that's when you can see it, because most of the solar radiation is not coming down at that point. And that's when you can look and see the corona, and just you'll be able to see the stars in the sky. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So you can go ahead and look up at that point. But then after that, you've got to put the eclipse glasses back on. And hey, look at that! Sony Stevens is here. So there's the point where if it looks like that, boom, those solar eclipse glasses need to go back on. So yeah.
Why is that? I mean, it's a strange question for me to ask, but why is that?
It's just because of the solar radiation. It's not something that your eyes are made to look at. And it's kind of like a laser beam. It just burns your eyes. So just don't do it. We had a story just the other day of a guy that saw an eclipse back in the 60s, and he looked up and he's got damage on his eye. And whenever he goes to the optometrist says, "Oh, you have eclipse damage on your eyes. You have sun damage where you looked at the sun."
Wow.
So even optometrists can tell exactly what happened.
Exactly. And I'm looking at the forecast again. You said it's going to probably be hot and humid.
Oh yeah.
What should we do to prepare ourselves?
Oh, that's another really cool thing. So I'm forecasting a high on Monday about 92 degrees. And we may not even make it there, because what happens is when we start to go into the partial eclipse, it's going to be like we're heading towards sunset. So at like 1:16 in the afternoon, that should be about our high temperature for the day. And then the temperatures are going to fall during the eclipse. So we're going to be talking about temperatures could drop 10, maybe 15 degrees. So by the end of the eclipse at 4:09, we could be looking at temperatures that are 10 or 15 degrees cooler than they were just a few hours before the eclipse happened. So that's one really cool thing that's going to happen. But your question was, what do we need to do to prepare? Make sure you're going to be outside for a while. Make sure to have sunscreen on. Make sure to drink plenty of water. Make sure you stay hydrated throughout the event, because you're going to be outside. And here are some of those suggestions for you. Don't look directly at the sun. Use those special glasses, and even look at it indirectly with one of those pinhole viewers, things like that. There's some really neat things you can look up on the internet of ways to turn your cereal box into a pinhole projector.
Interesting.
So just be ready to be outside. Like bug spray is probably a good idea.
Oh,
yeah, because with all that rain we've had recently, there are lots of bugs flying around.
I've encountered a lot of them recently.
When you work outside a lot, so you know, it's the things that you encounter at work too, Quintin. Make sure to stay hydrated and just prepare for a low country summer day, because that's what it's going to be.
You talk about preparation. We're heading obviously into fall and then eventually winter. What is your...
I know you love the summer.
I do.
You love this heat.
I do.
The last 2 days, 98 yesterday, and we hit at least 96 today. That's your weather, I know. But yeah, going ahead to the...
What is your level at when you look at winter for Charleston?
Well, it's a little early to speculate on anything specific, but if we stay in this wet pattern, it'll probably be cooler than the last few falls and winters that we've seen. The last winter, or especially the last winter was warm. If not the warmest, it was one of the warmest winters on record. So I would expect this winter to be a little cooler, just like our summer has. That's if the pattern stays the same, but it can change.
Change, right. Speaking of change, let me go back to last year. Obviously, we dealt with Hurricane Matthew.
We sure did.
When you look back at that, what still sticks out to you 1 year later?
Well, I'm not glad that it came here, but I'm glad that it served as a reminder that we don't just live in paradise, we live in a hurricane-prone area. I think it was a good wake-up call for a lot of people that haven't seen anything since Hugo.
Right.
I mean, we had Gaston back in 2004,
Right.
but Gaston really wasn't a whole lot. Matthew was more than Gaston, and we had the evacuation orders,
Right.
and I think people really listened to the evacuation orders, and they got out.
Right.
And I'm thankful for that, because up and down the coast, there were people that died down in Florida, there were people that died down in Georgia. Nobody died in the Low Country, because there were also people that died up in North Carolina from the flooding.
That's right.
I think a big part of that was the fact that people weren't here. People did evacuate when the governor issued the mandatory evacuations. Well, I guess they're not mandatory evacuations, but the evacuation order, and people got out. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful that it served as a wake-up call. I'm also thankful that the damage wasn't too bad. I know a lot of folks out there did get damage, and I'm just glad many people's houses just didn't get completely destroyed.
Like it did in North Carolina.
Right. Right. There are still a lot of people, especially around Lumberton,
Right.
North Carolina, that aren't even in their houses. So, and may not ever be able to go back to their houses.
Right.
So they live on the floodplain of the Lumber River, and not a good place to live.
Definitely not. Well, Chief Meteorologist Dave Williams, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Always a good time, Quintin.
Likewise.
You are welcome here anytime.
Oh, thank you.
We love having you in. Hopefully, when you come to visit, it's not because of a bad event in town. Hopefully, it's something fun like the
this?
eclipse. I'm geeked about it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a science nerd,
Right.
so I'm really geeked about it. Hopefully, everybody else is. Hopefully, you are too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yes,
Awesome.
sir.
Great to see you, Quintin.
Thank you.